"You can't prove anything, Sarah. Your father is a criminal, and I'll be the only one taking care of you." Brenda's voice echoed through the courtroom, full of false indignation as she pointed at little Sarah. The girl, tears in her eyes but with fierce determination, raised her finger. "She's lying. My dad didn't do anything." The courtroom was in shock. No one expected such boldness from a child. What they didn't know was that Sarah had an ace up her sleeve, evidence that would expose her stepmother and change her family's fate forever. But before we see how Sarah makes them pay, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get into the full story. Stop fighting, please stop. Sarah Thompson hugged her teddy bear tightly as she sat on the top stair, listening to her father and stepmother argue in the kitchen below. It was the third fight this week, and each one seemed louder than the last. 8-year-old Sarah had bright blue eyes that people said missed nothing. Her dark blonde hair hung in 2 neat braids, and right now, she was twisting the end of the right one around her finger, something she always did when nervous. Downstairs, the voices grew quieter, but Sarah could still hear them clearly in the small 2-story house on Maple Street in Millfield, Ohio. "That money belongs to Sarah and me, Brenda. My parents left it for us," her father, David, said firmly. "We're still married, David." "I deserve half of everything until the divorce is final," Brenda snapped back. Sarah knew they were fighting about the money and jewelry that her grandparents had left when they died in a car accident 6 months ago. $250,000 and her grandmother's antique jewelry collection were now locked in the wall safe behind the painting in the living room. She heard a chair scrape against the floor and quickly ran back to her bedroom. Seconds later, her father knocked gently on her door. "Sarah Bear? You awake?" David Thompson poked his head in, his kind face looking tired. At 38, his sandy brown hair was already starting to gray at the temples, and his wire-rimmed glasses sat slightly crooked on his nose. "Yes, Dad." Sarah put down Detective Brown, her teddy bear, and tried to smile. David sat on the edge of her bed. "I'm sorry about the noise. Adults sometimes have trouble agreeing on things." "Is Brenda still mad about the divorce?" Sarah asked. David sighed and pushed his glasses up. "Yes, but that's between Brenda and me. You don't need to worry about grown-up problems." "I miss when we were all happy," Sarah said quietly. "I know, sweetheart." David hugged her. "Listen, I have to go to parent-teacher conferences tonight. I'll be home around 10 o'clock. Will you be okay with Brenda?" Sarah nodded, though she didn't feel okay about it at all. Since David and Brenda had announced their divorce 3 months ago, Brenda barely spoke to Sarah except when David was around. "Remember what I showed you last week?" David said in a lower voice. "The safe behind the painting," Sarah whispered back. "Right. That's only for emergencies, but I want you to know it's there. Families should always know where important things are kept." He kissed the top of her head. "I'll check on you when I get home." After David left, Sarah stayed in her room playing with Detective Brown. "We need to solve the mystery of why Brenda is so angry all the time," she told her teddy. "Detective Brown is on the case." By 8:30, rain was pounding against her window. Sarah put on her pajamas and brushed her teeth, careful to avoid Brenda, who was watching TV in the living room. She had just fallen asleep when a loud crash woke her. Sarah sat up, clutching Detective Brown. "Thunder? Number." The sound came from inside the house. She heard voices downstairs, men's voices she didn't recognize. Sarah slipped out of bed and tiptoed to her door, opening it just enough to peek out. The hallway was dark, but light spilled up from downstairs. Carefully, she crept to the top of the stairs and peered down between the railings. What she saw made her heart pound so hard she thought it might jump out of her chest. 3 men in black masks stood in the living room. The painting that normally covered the safe hung crooked on the wall, and the safe door was open. One man was stuffing jewelry into a black bag while another held stacks of cash. But what confused Sarah most was Brenda. Her stepmother stood near the men, looking nervous but not tied up or hurt. She wasn't screaming for help. She wasn't even trying to run away. "Hurry up," Brenda whispered to one of the men. "Just take it all and go." Sarah covered her mouth to stop from gasping. Brenda wasn't being robbed. She was helping the robbers. One of the masked men looked toward the stairs and Sarah quickly ducked back. Heart racing, she crawled back to her room and hid under her covers, hugging Detective Brown tightly. "They're stealing Grandma's jewelry and all the money," she whispered to her teddy, "and Brenda is helping them. What do we do?" She was too scared to go back out. Instead, she lay awake for hours, jumping at every sound until she finally fell into an uneasy sleep. The next morning, Sarah woke to the sound of sirens. She ran to her window and saw 3 police cars in the driveway. She hurried downstairs in her pajamas to find Brenda talking to a police officer in the living room. The safe was empty, the furniture knocked over. "Brenda!" Sarah cried. "I saw what happened last night. I saw—" "Sarah!" Brenda cut her off sharply, then softened her voice as she turned to the officer. "Poor thing is confused and frightened." "Sarah, honey, we were robbed last night while we were sleeping." A woman with short dark hair and a badge clipped to her belt approached Sarah. She knelt down to Sarah's level. "Hello, Sarah. I'm Detective Lisa Martinez. Can you tell me what you saw?" Before Sarah could answer, Brenda burst into tears. "It's David," she sobbed to the detective. "My husband must have planned this. We're getting divorced, and he's been threatening to hide the money so I can't get my fair share. He must have hired those men to steal everything." "That's not true," Sarah protested, but Brenda pulled her close, squeezing her shoulder painfully. Just then, Sarah's father burst through the front door, his face pale with worry. "What happened? Sarah, are you okay?" David rushed to his daughter. Detective Martinez stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson, we need to ask you some questions about your whereabouts last night." "I was at school for parent-teacher conferences until about 10, then I drove home," David explained, looking confused. "Can anyone confirm you went straight home?" the detective asked. I stopped for gas, but otherwise came straight back." Detective Martinez nodded to another officer who handed her some papers. "Mr. Thompson, we found these emails on your computer. They show contact with known criminals in the area." David's face went white. "That's impossible. I never sent any emails like that." "Dad wouldn't do that," Sarah insisted. Detective Martinez showed David the papers. "These messages discuss the layout of your home and the location of your safe. They even mention the exact time to come when you'd be away and your wife and daughter would be home alone." "This is crazy," David said, his voice shaking. "I didn't write these." 2 officers moved toward David. "Mr. Thompson, we need you to come with us to answer some questions." "You're arresting me?" David looked stunned as one officer took out handcuffs. "Brenda, tell them this is ridiculous." Brenda just shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this to us, David?" As the officers put handcuffs on her father, Sarah ran to him crying, "Dad, tell them you didn't do it." David knelt down awkwardly, his hands restrained behind his back. "Listen to me, Sarah Bear. I did not do this. The truth always finds a way, Sarah Bear. Always." Sarah sobbed as the officers led her father out the door toward a police car. As the car pulled away, Brenda's grip on Sarah's shoulder tightened painfully. She leaned down and whispered in Sarah's ear, her voice suddenly cold and hard. "No one will believe a child over adults. Keep quiet if you want to see your father again." Sarah stood frozen on the porch, watching the police car disappear around the corner with her father inside. She had never felt so alone and afraid in her entire life. Sarah stared at the empty street where the police car had disappeared with her father inside. Brenda's fingers dug into her shoulder as she pulled Sarah back inside the house and closed the door. "Go to your room," Brenda ordered, her voice completely different from the tearful one she had used with the police. "And remember what I said." Sarah ran upstairs, closed her bedroom door, and buried her face in Detective Brown's soft fur. "What are we going to do?" she whispered to her teddy bear. "Dad didn't do anything wrong, but nobody believes me." That night, Sarah barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father in handcuffs looking back at her with sad eyes. The next morning, Sarah found Brenda in her bedroom doorway with empty cardboard boxes. "What are those for?" Sarah asked, clutching Detective Brown. "We're moving your things to the guest room," Brenda said, starting to take clothes from Sarah's dresser. "This room has too many bad memories now." "But I like my room," Sarah protested. Brenda's face hardened. "This isn't a discussion. Now help me pack your things." With tears in her eyes, Sarah watched as her colorful bedroom was emptied. Pictures of her with her dad came off the walls. Her favorite blue bedspread was replaced with an unfamiliar gray one in the smaller guest room across the hall. At breakfast, Brenda placed a bowl of cereal in front of Sarah. "I've enrolled you in a new school. You start at Westside Elementary tomorrow." "But all my friends are at Lincoln Elementary," Sarah said. "It's better this way. People talk, Sarah. They'll ask questions about your father." Brenda's phone rang and she answered it with a completely different voice, soft and sad. "Yes, we're managing. Poor Sarah is so confused. David really fooled us all." 3 days later, Brenda drove Sarah to the Millfield County Jail to visit her father. The building was large and gray with tiny windows. Inside, everything smelled like cleaning products. A guard led them to a room with tables and chairs. When David walked in wearing an orange uniform, Sarah ran to him. "Dad!" "Sarah Bear!" David hugged her tightly. His face looked tired and his glasses were slightly bent. "I miss you so much," Sarah said. "I miss you too, sweetheart." David looked at Brenda, who was watching them closely. "How are things at home?" Before Sarah could answer, Brenda spoke. "We're adjusting. Sarah started at Westside Elementary." "New school?" David frowned. "Why?" "I thought it would be easier for her," Brenda said. "Less questions from other children." David looked at Sarah. "How do you like it so far?" "It's okay," Sarah lied. She hadn't made any friends yet. Everyone seemed to know she was the criminal's daughter. Sarah wanted to tell her father what she had seen the night of the robbery, but Brenda never left them alone. The guard stayed nearby, too, listening to everything. When their 20 minutes were up, David kissed Sarah's forehead. "Be brave, Sarah Bear. The truth always finds a way, remember?" "Time's up," the guard announced. "Wait, we just got here," Sarah protested. 20 minutes is all you get," the guard said. As they were leaving, David's lawyer, John Miller, passed them in the hallway. He was an older man with kind eyes and messy gray hair who looked very tired. "Mrs. Thompson," he nodded at Brenda. "And you must be Sarah. I'm your dad's lawyer." "Is my dad coming home soon?" Sarah asked. John looked uncomfortable. "We're working on it. The evidence, well, it's complicated." "There is no complicated about it," Brenda said coldly. "The emails were on his computer." "Come on, Sarah." Back home, life changed completely. Brenda created new rules. Every day after school, she checked Sarah's backpack. She listened to all of Sarah's phone calls. She even moved the house phone into her bedroom at night. "Why are you looking through my notebook?" Sarah asked one afternoon when she found Brenda flipping through her school things. "Just checking your homework," Brenda said, but her eyes looked suspicious. One night, Sarah woke up thirsty. As she crept downstairs for water, she saw light coming from the office. Peeking through the cracked door, she saw Brenda sitting at her father's computer typing quickly. The next day at breakfast, Sarah asked, "Were you using Dad's computer last night?" Brenda's coffee cup froze halfway to her mouth. "What?" "I saw light from the office," Sarah said. Brenda set down her cup hard, spilling coffee. "Are you spying on me?" "No, I just—" "Listen to me." Brenda leaned forward. "What I do is none of your business. Your father left us with a lot of problems to fix. I'm trying to keep this house, to keep food on the table. Do you understand?" Sarah nodded, scared by Brenda's angry face. That afternoon, Detective Martinez came to their house with more papers. "We found bank records showing your husband withdrew large amounts of cash before the robbery," she told Brenda while Sarah listened from the staircase. and there are more messages to the same criminals. I can't believe he would do this to us, Brenda said, her voice trembling with fake tears. Detective Martinez noticed Sarah on the stairs. "Hello, Sarah. How are you doing?" "When is my dad coming home?" Sarah asked. The detective's face softened. "That's for the courts to decide. But with all this evidence..." She didn't finish her sentence. That evening, Sarah remembered her father's sister, Aunt Patricia. Maybe she could help. While Brenda was in the shower, Sarah grabbed the phone and dialed the number. "Hello?" came Aunt Patricia's voice after 3 rings. "Aunt Patricia, it's Sarah. I need..." The bathroom door opened. Brenda appeared, her hair wrapped in a towel, and grabbed the phone from Sarah's hand. "Patricia?" "It's Brenda." "Yes." Sarah just wanted to say hello. She glared at Sarah. "We're doing as well as can be expected. I'll have her call another time." She hung up. "She's my aunt. I want to talk to her," Sarah cried. "You're not calling anyone without my permission," Brenda snapped. "Go to your room. Now." That night, Sarah cried into Detective Brown's fur. "Dad didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "We have to help him." She reached under her mattress and pulled out a notebook she had hidden there. Inside, she had started writing everything she remembered about the night of the robbery, what the men looked like, what Brenda had said to them, everything. "This is our detective notebook," she told Detective Brown. "We're going to solve this case and save Dad." For the next 2 weeks, Sarah watched Brenda carefully. She noticed new shoes and clothes appearing in Brenda's closet. She heard Brenda laughing on the phone late at night when she thought Sarah was asleep. One evening, after Sarah was supposed to be in bed, she snuck to the top of the stairs when she heard Brenda talking on the phone in the kitchen. "Yes, everything's going according to plan," Brenda said quietly. "The prosecutor mentioned a plea deal today. Once it goes through, we'll have everything." Sarah leaned forward to hear better. "The kid?" "No, she's still in shock. She won't be a problem." Brenda paused. "Once the plea deal goes through, we'll have full custody and control of everything. The plan worked perfectly." Sarah's heart pounded. This was proof that Brenda was behind everything. But who would believe an 8-year-old girl over adults? She needed evidence, real evidence that grown-ups would believe. As she crept back to her room, Sarah made a promise to herself and to her father. She would find a way to reveal the truth, no matter how hard it might be or how scary Brenda was. Somehow she would make adults listen. Sarah closed her diary and slid it back under the loose floorboard she had discovered near her new bed. This hidden spot had become her secret place to store things she didn't want Brenda to find. She had been at Westside Elementary for 3 weeks now, and school was still hard. No one wanted to sit with the criminal's daughter at lunch. The next day in the cafeteria, Sarah sat alone again at the end of a long table. She unwrapped her sandwich and whispered to Detective Brown, hidden in her backpack, "At least we have each other." "Is this seat taken?" Sarah looked up to see a girl with dark curly hair and bright eyes standing across the table. She wore a yellow sweater and had a confident smile. "No," Sarah said, surprised that anyone wanted to sit with her. "I'm Emma Washington," the girl said, sitting down with her lunch tray. "You're Sarah, right? You're in Miss Wilson's class." "Yes," Sarah nodded. Emma took a bite of her pizza. "I like your braids." "I can never get my hair to stay in braids." Sarah touched one of her braids self-consciously. "My dad taught himself how to braid when my mom died. He does them every morning." Her voice got quiet. "He did them every morning." "Where's your dad now?" Emma asked. Sarah stared at her sandwich. Should she tell the truth? What if Emma left like everyone else did when they found out? "He's in jail, but he didn't do anything wrong." Emma didn't look shocked or disgusted. She just nodded. "My mom says not everyone in jail belongs there." "Your mom is right," Sarah said. "What did they say your dad did?" Emma asked. Sarah explained about the robbery and how her father was accused of planning it. "Wait," Emma said, her eyes wide. "Is your dad David Thompson, the history teacher from Millfield High?" Sarah nodded. Do you know him? My dad fixed the computers at his school, Emma said excitedly. He's always talking about how nice Mr. Thompson was. Dad said he was the only teacher who always said thank you. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt a tiny spark of hope. Someone whose parents knew her dad. Someone who might not think he was a criminal. Do you want to come to my house sometime? Emma asked. We could play games or watch movies. Yes, Sarah said immediately. Then her face fell. But my stepmom probably won't let me. My dad can call her, Emma suggested. He's good at talking to grown-ups. That night, Sarah nervously asked Brenda about visiting Emma's house. Absolutely not, Brenda said without looking up from her magazine. I don't know these people. But Emma's nice, and her dad knows my dad from school, Sarah said. Brenda's head snapped up. Her father knows David? Definitely not. The phone rang. Brenda answered it with her fake nice voice, but her expression changed as she listened. Yes, this is Brenda Thompson. Oh, you're Emma's father. Yes, Sarah mentioned your daughter. Brenda frowned. Well, I'm not sure about a play date. Sarah's been through so much trauma. Sarah watched as Brenda listened more, her expression shifting between annoyed and calculating. I suppose Saturday afternoon would work, just for a couple hours, Brenda finally said. Yes, I'll bring her at 1 o'clock. Thank you, Mr. Washington. When she hung up, she glared at Sarah. You can go for 2 hours on Saturday. But remember our rule about what we discuss with strangers. I know. Don't talk about Dad's case, Sarah repeated. On Saturday, Brenda drove Sarah to a friendly-looking blue house on Oak Street. Emma ran out to meet them. You're here? Come see my room. She grabbed Sarah's hand. A tall man with glasses and a warm smile came to the door. Hello there. I'm Michael Washington, Emma's dad. He held out his hand to Brenda. Thanks for letting Sarah visit. I'll be back at 3 o'clock sharp, Brenda said, ignoring his hand. Sarah knows the rules about what not to discuss. Michael looked confused but nodded. We'll take good care of her. Inside, Emma's house felt warm and happy. It smelled like cookies, and there were family photos everywhere. Emma's mom, Tanya, came out of the kitchen wearing an apron. You must be Sarah. Emma hasn't stopped talking about her new friend. I made chocolate chip cookies for you girls. Sarah couldn't remember the last time someone had baked cookies for her. Thank you, Mrs. Washington. Call me Tanya, sweetie. Emma showed Sarah her room, which was painted purple and had stuffed animals everywhere. Do you like to play board games? Or we could draw. For the first time in months, Sarah felt like a normal kid again. They played games, ate cookies, and laughed. But when Emma asked about Sarah's teddy bear, something inside Sarah broke. His name is Detective Brown, Sarah said, her voice starting to shake. My dad gave him to me. He said we could solve mysteries together. And suddenly, Sarah was crying. Not just small tears, but big, messy sobs that she had been holding in for weeks. Sarah, what's wrong? Emma put her arm around her friend. I saw it, Sarah whispered between sobs. I saw what really happened during the robbery. My stepmom Brenda was helping the robbers. She wasn't tied up like she told the police. She was standing there talking to them. Emma's eyes went wide. Are you sure? Sarah nodded miserably. Nobody believes me. Brenda told the police my dad planned it all, but he didn't. And now he's in jail, and I'm all alone with her, and she won't let me talk to anyone, and… Her words dissolved into more tears. You need to tell my parents, Emma said firmly. They'll believe you. My dad always says the truth is important. Brenda will be so mad if she finds out I told anyone. She won't know, Emma promised. Please, Sarah. My dad can help. With Emma holding her hand, Sarah went downstairs. Michael and Tanya listened with serious faces as Sarah explained everything. Waking up during the robbery, seeing Brenda with the masked men, the threatening words, even the secret diary she kept. When she finished, the room was quiet. Sarah held Detective Brown tightly, waiting for them to say she was making it up or that children often imagine things. Instead, Michael knelt down to her level. "Sarah, I believe you." Fresh tears filled Sarah's eyes. "You do?" "Yes," Michael said, "but this is a difficult situation. It's your word against your stepmother's, and she has evidence against your dad. We need proof, not just what you saw." "What kind of proof?" Sarah asked. "Something that shows Brenda was involved," Tanya explained, "like messages between her and the robbers or the stolen items or anything that connects her to the crime." "I've been writing everything down in my diary," Sarah said. "Everything I remember and the strange things Brenda does now." "That's good," Michael nodded. "Keep doing that. And Sarah, I promise we'll try to help you and your dad." For the first time in months, Sarah felt something close to hope. The next week, Sarah met Olivia Chen, a woman the court appointed to represent Sarah's interests during the divorce and criminal case. "Hello, Sarah," Olivia said, sitting across from her in a small office downtown. "My job is to make sure you're being taken care of during this difficult time." Sarah liked Olivia's kind face and colorful scarf. "Can I tell you something important?" "Of course," Olivia smiled. "The night of the robbery, I saw Brenda with the robbers." "She wasn't tied up. She was helping them." Olivia's smile faded slightly. "That's a very serious thing to say, Sarah." "But it's true, I saw it." "I understand you believe that," Olivia said gently. "But sometimes when we're upset or scared, especially during a divorce, we see things in a way that makes sense to us. Children often have complicated feelings during divorces." "I'm not making it up," Sarah insisted. "I'm not saying you are." Olivia touched Sarah's hand. "Sometimes we see things the way we want them to be, not how they actually are." Sarah's heart sank. Even Olivia didn't really believe her. At home, Brenda seemed more nervous than before. Sarah noticed her checking the rooms more often, looking through drawers, and spending a long time on phone calls in the garage. One day after school, Sarah snuck into Brenda's bedroom while she was cooking dinner. Inside Brenda's closet, Sarah found 3 new pairs of expensive shoes still in their boxes. There were shopping bags from fancy stores with new clothes that still had price tags. How could Brenda buy such expensive things when she kept saying they had no money because of the robbery? The next day at school, Emma showed Sarah something on her phone. "Look, if you press the home button fast, you can see if a phone is unlocked," Emma demonstrated. "And most people use simple passwords like birthdays or addresses." "Why are you showing me this?" Sarah asked. "Because," Emma whispered, "if you can check Brenda's phone, you might find proof." That night, Sarah waited until Brenda was in the shower. She crept downstairs and found Brenda's phone on the kitchen counter. She pressed the home button. The phone was locked, but Sarah tried Brenda's birthday, 0824. The phone opened. Sarah's hands shook as she quickly checked the messages. There were texts to someone saved only as R with messages like, "Need to move the jewelry soon." Getting too risky. "Split the money like we agreed, 50-50. Make sure those emails stay on his computer. The case depends on it." Sarah quickly used her iPad to take photos of the messages. She heard the shower turn off upstairs and quickly put the phone back exactly where she found it. Back in her room, Sarah looked at the photos she had taken. This was real evidence. Brenda was texting someone about the stolen jewelry and money. Someone was helping her frame Sarah's dad. But who was R, and what should she do with this evidence? Sarah wasn't sure, but for the first time since her father's arrest, she had something adults might believe, proof that Brenda was lying. Sarah stared at the photos on her iPad. The messages between Brenda and someone called R were real evidence. Her hands trembled with excitement as she added these details to her secret diary, which she kept hidden under the loose floorboard. 6 weeks had passed since her father's arrest. Sarah was allowed to visit him again the next day, and she could hardly sleep thinking about telling him what she had discovered. When morning came, Brenda drove Sarah to the Millfield County Jail. The drive was silent, with Brenda repeatedly checking her makeup in the rearview mirror before they arrived. The visiting room looked the same. Cold gray walls, uncomfortable plastic chairs, guards watching from every corner. But David Thompson looked different. His orange jumpsuit hung loosely on his thinner frame, and dark circles surrounded his eyes. "Dad!" Sarah ran to hug him. "Sarah Bear!" His smile was tired but genuine as he held her tight. "I've missed you so much." "How are you doing in here?" Sarah asked, noticing his glasses were still bent. David glanced at Brenda, who sat nearby watching them. "I'm managing. My lawyer, Mr. Miller, visited yesterday. He says—" His voice dropped. "The case against me looks pretty strong with all those emails and bank records." "But Dad, I need to tell you something about the night—" "Sarah," Brenda cut in sharply, moving closer. "Remember our talk about not upsetting your father with stories?" "It's not a story," Sarah insisted. "Dad, I think that's enough for today." Brenda stood up. "You're clearly getting upset, Sarah. We should go." "We just got here," Sarah protested. "David needs rest and you're getting worked up," Brenda said firmly. "Say goodbye now." The guard nodded. "Visit's over anyway. Time's up." David quickly hugged Sarah again. "Stay strong, Sarah Bear. I love you." "This isn't fair," Sarah cried as Brenda pulled her away. On the drive home, Sarah sat in angry silence. Her chance to tell her father about the evidence was gone. The next day at Westside Elementary, Sarah was eating lunch with Emma when Ms. Wilson, their teacher, walked by and overheard their conversation. "My dad is innocent," Sarah was saying. "I found messages on Brenda's phone that prove it." Ms. Wilson stopped, concerned. "Sarah? What messages are you talking about?" Sarah froze, realizing she had spoken too loudly. "Just messages from games," Emma jumped in quickly. "Sarah's really good at solving game puzzles." Ms. Wilson looked unconvinced. "I see. Well, enjoy your lunch, girls." After school, Sarah was called to the principal's office. Inside, a woman with short blonde hair and glasses introduced herself. "Hello, Sarah. I'm Ms. Winters, the school counselor. Ms. Wilson mentioned you were talking about your father's case today." "I wasn't doing anything wrong," Sarah said defensively. "Nobody's saying you did anything wrong." Ms. Winters smiled gently. "I understand this is a difficult time for you. Sometimes when parents are accused of crimes, children create stories to explain things in ways that make more sense to them." "I'm not creating stories," Sarah insisted. "Brenda is lying about everything." Ms. Winters wrote something in her notebook. "It's common for children to blame a step-parent during a divorce. Your brain is trying to protect itself from painful truths." "But I saw what happened." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. "I'd like to talk with you twice a week from now on," Ms. Winters said. "Would that be okay? We can talk about your feelings about your dad and Brenda." Sarah just nodded, knowing it wouldn't matter what she said. Nobody believed her anyway. When Brenda picked her up, the principal asked to speak with her privately. Sarah waited in the hallway, watching through the glass as Ms. Winters talked, and Brenda nodded with a concerned expression on her face. That evening, a man Sarah had never seen before came to their house. He was tall, with short dark hair and a thick neck. His smile didn't reach his eyes when Brenda introduced him. "Sarah, this is my cousin Roy. He's come to check on us." Roy Peterson bent down to Sarah's level. "Nice to finally meet you, kiddo. Brenda's told me so much about you." Something about his voice made Sarah's skin prickle. It sounded familiar, too familiar. Then she realized it was one of the voices she had heard the night of the robbery. Hi, she managed to say, trying to hide her fear. "I brought some gifts," Roy announced, pulling out a fancy perfume bottle for Brenda and a box of chocolates for Sarah. "That's so thoughtful," Brenda gushed, hugging him. While Sarah sat stiffly on the couch pretending to watch TV, Roy and Brenda talked quietly in the kitchen. Sarah strained to hear their conversation. "Did you bring the papers?" Brenda asked. "Yeah, but we might have a problem." Roy replied. "Johnson says the watch is too recognizable to sell as is. We need to take it apart first." "Keep your voice down," Brenda hissed. "The watch?" Sarah remembered her grandmother's antique watch was among the stolen jewelry. This was more proof that Roy was involved. The next day, Olivia Chen visited their home for an official assessment. She walked through each room, taking notes on her clipboard. "Sarah, would you show me your bedroom?" Olivia asked. Once they were alone in her room, Sarah quickly pulled out her diary from under the floorboard. "Miss Chen, I need to show you something," she whispered, opening to the pages where she had documented Brenda's suspicious behavior. "Sarah, what is this?" Olivia looked concerned. "It's my detective notebook. I've been writing down everything Brenda does that proves she's lying. And look," Sarah showed her the photos of the text messages. "Brenda is texting someone named R about the stolen jewelry." Before Olivia could respond, Brenda appeared in the doorway. "What are you showing her, Sarah?" Her voice was light, but her eyes were cold. "Sarah was just sharing her diary with me," Olivia said carefully. "Oh, her little storybook." Brenda laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Sarah has such an active imagination. Her counselor at school says it's how she's coping with her father's crime." "It's not imagination," Sarah protested. "It's evidence." Brenda took the diary from Olivia's hands. "Sarah has trouble separating fact from fiction lately. The therapist says it's normal for children in these situations." Olivia looked uncertain, glancing between Sarah's desperate face and Brenda's convincing concern. Later that week, Michael Washington called John Miller, David's lawyer. When Brenda discovered Sarah had been secretly meeting Emma after school, she was furious. "You are forbidden from seeing the Washingtons again," she shouted. "They're helping your father's case, which means they're working against us." "They're not working against us," Sarah argued. "They're trying to find the truth." "The truth?" Brenda laughed coldly. "The truth is your father tried to hide money from our divorce by staging a robbery. The evidence is clear." "That's not what happened," Sarah yelled back. "Go to your room." Brenda pointed upstairs. "Now!" That night, after Sarah was supposed to be asleep, she heard the front door open. Quietly, she crept to the top of the stairs and saw Roy entering the house. "We need to talk," he said to Brenda, his voice tense. "That computer guy, Washington, is offering to analyze the emails for Thompson's lawyer. If he figures out they were backdated, we're done." "He won't find anything," Brenda insisted. "I was careful." "And what about the kid?" Roy asked. "She keeps asking questions, talking to people. What if someone finally listens to her?" Sarah held her breath, straining to hear Brenda's answer. "She's 8 years old." "Nobody takes her seriously," Brenda said. "You said she was sneaking around taking pictures of your phone," Roy countered. "If she has evidence, what do you suggest?" Brenda's voice had an edge Sarah had never heard before. Roy lowered his voice, but Sarah could still hear him. "If she becomes a real threat, we might need to take care of the problem permanently. I know people who could make her disappear until after the trial." Sarah's heart pounded so loudly she was sure they could hear it. Make her disappear? They were talking about kidnapping her. "Let's not be dramatic," Brenda said. "For now, I'll keep her isolated. No phone, no internet, no contact with anyone who might help her." "And if that doesn't work?" Roy asked. "Then we'll discuss other options," Brenda replied coldly. Sarah crept back to her bedroom, her whole body shaking with fear. This wasn't just about her father anymore. She was in danger too. She checked her hiding spot under the floorboard. To her horror, she noticed her diary wasn't exactly where she had left it. Someone had moved it slightly. Brenda must have been searching her room. Quickly, Sarah took out a spare notebook and started copying innocent entries about school and friends. This would be her decoy diary. Her real diary, with all the evidence, needed a better hiding place. As she worked late into the night, Sarah knew her situation was becoming more dangerous every day. Brenda and Roy weren't just trying to frame her father anymore. If they thought Sarah could expose them, they might do something terrible to her too. Sarah clutched Detective Brown tightly. "We need help fast," she whispered to her teddy bear, "before it's too late for Dad and for me." Sarah spent the night with her real diary hidden inside the pillowcase of Detective Brown. She had been so careful, but now she knew Brenda was searching her room. Worse, she had heard Roy talking about making her disappear. She hardly slept, jumping at every sound in the old house. 3 months had passed since her father's arrest. This morning was his preliminary hearing at the Springfield County Courthouse. Brenda had tried to leave Sarah with a neighbor, but Olivia Chen insisted Sarah should attend. "It's important for her to understand what's happening," Olivia had said firmly. The Springfield County Courthouse was the biggest building Sarah had ever seen. Tall, white columns stood in front of huge wooden doors. Inside, everything echoed. Footsteps, whispers, the closing of doors. Sarah held Olivia's hand tightly as they entered the courtroom. "There will be a judge who listens to both sides," Olivia explained quietly. "Then he'll decide if there's enough evidence for a trial." Sarah nodded, clutching Detective Brown in her lap. Brenda sat on the other side of the room with the prosecutor, a serious woman in a dark suit. When David was brought in wearing handcuffs, Sarah wanted to run to him. He looked even thinner than before, but he managed a small smile when he saw her. His lawyer, John Miller, sat beside him, shuffling through papers. The hearing began. Sarah didn't understand many of the legal words, but she understood when Brenda took the stand and started lying. "David became very controlling after his parents died," Brenda said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "He threatened that if I went through with the divorce, I would get nothing. He said he would hide all the assets." "And what happened the night of the robbery?" the prosecutor asked. "I was watching television when 3 men in masks broke in." Brenda's voice shook. "They tied me up and took everything from the safe." I was terrified. Sarah squeezed Detective Brown so hard her knuckles turned white. Brenda was lying. She hadn't been tied up at all. Sarah had seen her standing with the robbers, talking to them. "That's not true," she whispered. Olivia patted her hand gently. "Let the grown-ups talk now," she whispered back. More people testified, including Detective Martinez and a bank employee who talked about withdrawals from David's account before the robbery. When they took a break, Sarah noticed John Miller watching her. He walked over during the recess while Olivia was talking to another lawyer. "Hello, Sarah," he said kindly, kneeling to her level. "I've noticed you seem very upset when your stepmother testifies." Sarah looked around to make sure Brenda wasn't nearby. "She's lying," she whispered. John Miller's eyebrows rose. "What makes you say that?" "I saw what happened that night," Sarah said, her voice barely audible. "I woke up and went to the stairs. Brenda wasn't tied up like she told the police. She was helping the robbers. She was standing there talking to them." John Miller's tired face became very alert. "Sarah, are you absolutely sure about what you saw?" Sarah nodded firmly. "Yes. And her cousin Roy was one of the robbers. I recognized his voice when he came to our house." "Roy? Do you know his full name?" "Roy Peterson. He visits Brenda a lot now. They talk about selling the jewelry and making sure the emails stay on Dad's computer." John Miller looked stunned. "Sarah, would you be brave enough to help your dad by telling the truth about what you saw, even if it's scary?" "Yes," Sarah said without hesitation. "I want to help my dad." "I'll talk to the judge about having you testify," John said. "But for now, this stays between us, okay? Don't tell anyone else, especially not Brenda." When the hearing resumed, Sarah noticed John Miller whispering urgently to her father. David looked back at Sarah with wide eyes. At the end of the day, the judge announced his decision. "Based on the evidence presented, I find probable cause to believe David Thompson committed these crimes. This case will proceed to trial. Bail is denied due to the serious nature of the charges." Sarah watched helplessly as her father was led away again. Brenda smiled as they left the courthouse, talking happily on her phone as they drove home. "Everything went perfectly," she told someone. "The judge is sending it to trial, just like we planned. David is staying in jail until then." That evening, there was an unexpected knock at their door. Brenda opened it to find Detective Martinez standing there. "Detective?" Brenda said, sounding surprised. "What can I do for you?" "I have some follow-up questions," Detective Martinez said. "May I come in?" Inside, Detective Martinez noticed Sarah sitting on the stairs. "Hello, Sarah. How are you doing?" "Okay," Sarah said quietly. "Detective, what is this about?" Brenda asked. "Actually, I was hoping to speak with Sarah alone for a few minutes," Martinez said. Brenda immediately moved closer to Sarah. "I don't think that's appropriate without her advocate present. Sarah has been very emotional lately." "I just want to ask about what she remembers from that night," Martinez explained. "She was asleep," Brenda said firmly. "Sarah, weren't you asleep the whole time?" With Brenda staring at her, Sarah felt too afraid to tell the truth. "Yes," she mumbled. "I was asleep." Detective Martinez looked disappointed. "I see. Well, if you remember anything, Sarah, you can always call me." She handed Sarah a card, which Brenda quickly took. "We'll certainly let you know," Brenda said, showing the detective out. The next day after school, Emma had bad news. "My dad got a letter saying he has to testify at your dad's trial," Emma said sadly. "The prosecutor is making him say he taught your dad computer skills that could have been used to hide evidence." "But that would hurt my dad's case," Sarah gasped. "Dad feels terrible," Emma said. "He doesn't want to do it, but they're forcing him." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the evidence she needed to help her father. Around midnight, she remembered something important. Her father had once shown her where he kept a spare key to unlock the desk drawers, in case of emergency. This was definitely an emergency. Sarah crept downstairs, careful to avoid the squeaky steps. In the kitchen, she stood on a chair to reach behind the refrigerator where her father had hidden the small key. With the key in hand, she went to Brenda's office. The moonlight through the window was just bright enough to see. Sarah unlocked the bottom drawer of the desk and pulled it open. Inside, she found a burner phone, the same one she had seen Brenda using for secret calls. There were also papers with lists of jewelry items and their values. But most shocking of all, in a small envelope, she found her grandmother's diamond earrings that were supposedly stolen. With shaking hands, Sarah used her iPad to take photos of everything. This was real proof that Brenda had lied about the robbery. Sarah carefully put everything back exactly as she had found it, locked the drawer, and returned the key to its hiding place. Then she crept back upstairs with her precious evidence. The next morning, Brenda stormed into Sarah's room, her face twisted with anger. "Someone was in my desk last night," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "The drawer was unlocked." "Maybe you forgot to lock it," Sarah suggested, trying to sound innocent. "I never forget," Brenda snapped. She began searching Sarah's room, looking through drawers and under the bed. "Where is it? What did you take?" "Nothing," Sarah protested. "I was asleep." Brenda grabbed Sarah's iPad. "Let me see this." Sarah's heart pounded as Brenda tried to unlock it. Thankfully, she had changed the password after taking the photos. "What's the password?" Brenda demanded. "I forgot," Sarah lied. Brenda threw the iPad on the bed in frustration. "You're lying! You've been snooping and telling stories about me. Well, it stops now." As soon as Brenda left for work, Sarah called Olivia Chen in panic. "Ms. Chen, please help me," Sarah begged when Olivia answered. "Brenda knows I found evidence in her desk. I have photos of my grandmother's earrings that were supposed to be stolen, and Brenda's cousin Roy was one of the robbers. I heard them talking about selling the jewelry." "Slow down, Sarah," Olivia said, her voice concerned. "Are you safe right now?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "Brenda was really angry this morning, and I heard her and Roy talking about making me disappear until after the trial." "Stay where you are," Olivia said firmly. "I'm coming right now." But before Olivia could arrive, Sarah heard a car in the driveway. Looking out the window, she saw Roy's truck parking behind Brenda's car. They had both come home in the middle of the day. Sarah pressed her ear to the floor to hear their conversation downstairs. "The kid is on to us," Brenda was saying. "She broke into my desk last night." "I told you she was a problem," Roy growled. "What did she find?" "I don't know, but she must have seen the earrings," Brenda said. "We need to move her somewhere until after the trial." "I know a place," Roy said. "My buddy's cabin in the woods. No one would look for her there." Sarah's blood turned cold. They were going to kidnap her. She had to escape now. Quickly, she grabbed her iPad, Detective Brown, and her real diary. She pushed open her bedroom window and looked down. It wasn't too far to the ground. She could climb down using the trellis beside her window. With her heart pounding, Sarah put her legs over the windowsill. This was her only chance to escape and save her father. If she stayed, Brenda and Roy would make her disappear. Sarah climbed down the trellis, her hands shaking as she held tightly to the wooden lattice. When her feet touched the ground, she didn't look back. She ran through backyards and side streets, clutching her iPad and Detective Brown to her chest. She had only one place to go: Emma's house. 20 minutes later, Sarah knocked frantically on the Washingtons' door. Emma opened it, her eyes growing wide with surprise. "Sarah! What are you— Please let me in!" Sarah gasped, out of breath from running. "Brenda and Roy are going to kidnap me." Emma pulled Sarah inside immediately. Michael and Tanya Washington rushed into the entryway, alarmed by the commotion. "Sarah?" Michael said. "What's happening?" "They're going to take me away," Sarah cried, tears streaming down her face. "I heard them talking about hiding me in a cabin in the woods until after the trial." "Slow down, honey." Tanya guided Sarah to the living room couch. "Tell us everything." Between sobs, Sarah explained how she'd found her grandmother's earrings in Brenda's desk, taken photos of evidence, and then overheard Brenda and Roy planning to make her disappear. "I have proof," Sarah said, unlocking her iPad with trembling fingers. "Look, here are the text messages between Brenda and Roy. And here are photos of the earrings that were supposed to be stolen." Michael examined the photos carefully. "This is serious evidence, Sarah. We need to call John Miller right away." While Michael made the call, Tanya brought Sarah a glass of water and a blanket. Emma sat close beside her friend, holding her hand. "You were so brave," Emma whispered. Michael returned, his face serious. "I spoke with John Miller. He says we need to take Sarah and her evidence directly to the district attorney's office. He'll meet us there." "What about Brenda?" Tanya asked. "She'll be looking for Sarah." As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. "She already is," Michael said grimly. At the Thompson house, Brenda was giving a dramatic performance for the police officers who had responded to her frantic call. "She's been so disturbed lately," Brenda sobbed into a tissue, "making up wild stories about me. The school counselor said she's having delusions because of her father's crime." "We'll issue an alert for her right away, ma'am," an officer assured her. "Please find her," Brenda pleaded. "She's emotionally disturbed and could hurt herself." Back at the Washington home, Michael checked his phone. "There's an alert out for Sarah already. They're saying she's emotionally disturbed and missing." "That's a lie!" Sarah protested. "We know," Michael said gently, "but that means police will be looking for you. We need to get downtown quickly, but carefully." Michael helped Sarah into their car, tucking the blanket around her to make her less visible. As they drove toward downtown Springfield, they passed 2 police cars driving slowly through the neighborhood, obviously searching for Sarah. "Duck down," Michael instructed as they approached a stoplight with a police car nearby. Sarah crouched on the floor of the car, clutching Detective Brown. "Are they going to arrest me?" "No," Michael assured her. "Once we show the evidence to the district attorney, they'll understand you're telling the truth." At the district attorney's office, a tall woman with short black hair introduced herself as Assistant District Attorney Meredith Holloway. She did not look happy to see them. "Mr. Washington," she said coldly, "are you aware there's an alert out for this child? Her stepmother has reported her missing and emotionally disturbed." "Miss Holloway, Sarah has evidence that could change everything about the Thompson case," Michael explained. The ADA sighed but gestured for them to sit down. "What evidence?" Sarah opened her iPad and showed Ms. Holloway the photos of text messages and the earrings. "These were supposed to be stolen in the robbery, but Brenda has them hidden in her desk." Ms. Holloway studied the photos with a frown. "These are concerning, but not conclusive. The messages are vague enough to have innocent explanations, and we only have your word that these earrings were part of the stolen items." "But I'm telling the truth," Sarah insisted. "Many children find it difficult to accept when a parent commits a crime," Ms. Holloway said. "It's natural to create alternate explanations." Michael was about to argue further when the door opened. Detective Martinez walked in, looking surprised to see Sarah. "I got your message about the Thompson case," Martinez said to Holloway, then noticed Sarah. "What's going on here?" "Detective, Sarah has run away from home and brought what she claims is evidence that her stepmother was involved in the robbery," Ms. Holloway explained. Detective Martinez knelt down to Sarah's level. "Sarah, why did you run away?" "Brenda and Roy were going to take me to a cabin in the woods until after the trial," Sarah said. "I heard them talking about it. And look," she showed Martinez the photos on her iPad. Martinez examined the images carefully, her expression changing. "These text messages match a number I've been suspicious of. And these earrings," she looked at Sarah. "I've been having doubts about this case for weeks. Things don't add up." "You believe me?" Sarah asked hopefully. "I believe there's enough here to investigate further," Martinez said firmly. She turned to Holloway. "I want a warrant to search Roy Peterson's residence." "Based on photos a child took?" Holloway asked skeptically. "Based on these messages matching phone records I've already subpoenaed," Martinez countered, "and based on inconsistencies in the original case." While the adults argued, John Miller arrived. He listened to the situation and pulled Martinez and Holloway aside for a private conversation. Sarah couldn't hear what they were saying, but there was a lot of nodding and serious faces. Finally, John Miller approached Sarah. "The district attorney is going to investigate your evidence. Detective Martinez is getting a search warrant for Roy Peterson's house." "What about me?" Sarah asked. "I can't go back to Brenda's house." "No, you can't," Miller agreed. "The court is placing you in emergency foster care until we sort this out." 3 hours later, Sarah sat in the living room of the Garcia family. Mr. and Mrs. Garcia had 2 children of their own and a warm, cozy house filled with family photos. "You'll stay in our guest room," Mrs. Garcia explained kindly. "We've been emergency foster parents for 5 years now." "Thank you," Sarah said quietly, still holding Detective Brown tightly. Mr. Garcia turned on the television, then quickly turned it off when he saw the local news showing Sarah's school photo with the words "missing child" underneath. But Sarah had already seen it. "They're talking about me?" Mr. Garcia nodded reluctantly. "Your stepmother gave an interview. She's very concerned about you." Sarah knew concerned wasn't the right word. Brenda would be furious that her plans were ruined. The next day, John Miller visited Sarah at the Garcia home. He brought an iPad with him. "Someone wants to talk to you," he said with a smile, setting up the iPad on the kitchen table. When the screen lit up, Sarah gasped. "Dad!" David Thompson's tired face broke into a huge smile. "Sarah Bear! Are you okay?" "I'm okay now," Sarah said, touching the screen. "I'm staying with nice people. And Dad, I found evidence. I saw Brenda with the robbers that night, just like I told you." "I know, sweetheart. John told me everything." David's eyes filled with tears. "You've been so brave." "They're investigating now," Sarah explained excitedly. "Detective Martinez is searching Roy's house." "Sarah," David leaned closer to the screen. "There's something important that might help. Do you remember Grandma's antique watch? The gold one with the little flowers on it?" Sarah nodded. "The one you said was special." "It has a secret compartment in the back," David explained. "Inside is a small photo of you as a baby with me and Grandma. If they can find that watch, it would prove the connection to the real thieves." "I'll tell Detective Martinez," Sarah promised. After saying goodbye to her father, Sarah told John Miller about the watch. He immediately called Detective Martinez with this new information. Later that afternoon, Michael Washington visited. He had been working on the emails used against David. "I found something strange," Michael told John Miller while Sarah listened. "The emails supposedly sent before the robbery actually contain metadata showing they were created after the robbery date, then backdated to appear older." "That proves they're fake," Sarah exclaimed. "It strongly suggests it," Michael agreed, "but we need more evidence to be absolutely certain." That evening, Detective Martinez called with exciting news. "We stopped Roy Peterson for a traffic violation as he was leaving town. He had a suitcase full of cash and was heading for the state border." "Did you find the watch?" Sarah asked eagerly. "Not yet," Martinez replied, "but we have a warrant to search his garage now. We're heading there tonight." As Sarah got ready for bed in the Garcia's guest room, she felt hopeful for the first time in months. With Roy caught and the police searching for evidence, the truth was finally starting to come out. Mrs. Garcia tucked her in. "You've had quite a day, brave girl." "Do you think they'll find Grandma's watch?" Sarah asked. "I hope so," Mrs. Garcia said, smoothing Sarah's hair. "Now get some rest." Sarah hugged Detective Brown close as she fell asleep, knowing that Brenda was still out there somewhere, probably very angry that her plan had failed. But for tonight at least, Sarah was safe. Sarah woke up to excited voices downstairs in the Garcia home. She grabbed Detective Brown and hurried down in her pajamas, still rubbing sleep from her eyes. Mr. Garcia was on the phone, nodding eagerly. When he saw Sarah, he gave her a thumbs-up signal. "Yes, she's right here," he said into the phone. "I'll tell her." "Thank you, Detective." "What happened?" Sarah asked as he hung up. "Detective Martinez searched Roy Peterson's garage last night," Mr. Garcia explained, his face bright with excitement. "Sarah, they found jewelry hidden in a locked toolbox." "Did they find Grandma's watch?" Sarah asked, her heart beating faster. "Yes! And just like your father said, it had a hidden compartment with a family photo inside." Sarah jumped up and down, hugging Detective Brown tightly. "That proves it! That proves Roy was involved in the robbery!" Mrs. Garcia appeared from the kitchen with breakfast. "This is wonderful news, but you still need to eat. Today is going to be a busy day." Sarah was too excited to be hungry, but she managed to eat some toast. Just as she finished, John Miller arrived with a thick folder under his arm. "Good morning, Sarah," he greeted her warmly. "I guess you've heard the good news?" Sarah nodded eagerly. "They found Grandma's watch." "They sure did," John confirmed, "and that's not all." Detective Martinez also found bank records showing Roy deposited large amounts of cash right after the robbery. "So my dad can come home now?" Sarah asked hopefully. John sat down at the table. "Not yet, but we're getting closer. Today, we need to prepare you for something important. You might need to testify in court about what you saw the night of the robbery." "You mean tell the judge and everyone what I saw?" Sarah asked. "Exactly," John said. "It can be scary to talk in front of so many people, so I want to practice with you." For the next hour, John asked Sarah questions about the night of the robbery. He taught her to speak clearly and to tell exactly what she saw without adding extra details. "Just tell the truth as you remember it," John advised. "If you don't know something or don't remember, it's okay to say that." "Will Brenda be there?" Sarah asked nervously. "Yes, but you don't need to look at her. You can look at me or your dad when you talk." After lunch, a new person arrived at the Garcia home. He was a tall man with dark hair and glasses who introduced himself as Thomas Blackwell. "I'm from the district attorney's office," he explained to Sarah. "After seeing the evidence Detective Martinez found, my office is now working with Mr. Miller to help your father." "You believe me now?" Sarah asked. "The evidence is very compelling," Mr. Blackwell said. "The watch with the family photo is particularly important because it connects Roy directly to the stolen items." Just then, a police car pulled up outside. Officer Jenkins stepped out and hurried to the door. "We have a situation," he told the adults. "Brenda Thompson is on her way here. She found out somehow where Sarah is staying." "How?" Mrs. Garcia asked, alarmed. "We're not sure," Officer Jenkins admitted. "But she's demanded to see Sarah and is quite upset." John Miller turned to Sarah. "You don't have to see her if you don't want to." "I'm scared," Sarah admitted, clutching Detective Brown. "Officer Jenkins will stay right here," Mr. Blackwell assured her. "And so will we." 10 minutes later, Brenda's car screeched to a halt in the driveway. She stormed up to the door, her face flushed with anger. Mr. Garcia opened the door before she could knock. "Where is she?" Brenda demanded. "I have a right to see my stepdaughter." "Mrs. Thompson, please calm down," John Miller said, stepping forward. "Don't tell me to calm down," Brenda shouted. "Sarah has been spreading lies about me and now you've taken her away." "We have evidence that suggests Sarah has been telling the truth," Mr. Blackwell said calmly. "What evidence?" Brenda scoffed. "The fantasies of an 8-year-old girl?" "No," Officer Jenkins said firmly. "Physical evidence found at Roy Peterson's residence, including jewelry from the robbery." Brenda's face paled slightly. "Roy might have been involved, but I had nothing to do with it." "Really?" Mr. Blackwell asked. "Then how did you know the antique watch had yellow diamonds on the face?" "That detail wasn't in the police report or mentioned in any news coverage." Brenda froze. I didn't say anything about diamonds." "You just did," Officer Jenkins said, taking out his notepad. "You said yellow diamonds before anyone mentioned what the watch looked like." Brenda realized her mistake. Her face hardened as she spotted Sarah hiding behind Mrs. Garcia. "This is ridiculous," she said. "I'm leaving, but this isn't over. That child belongs with me." As Brenda stormed back to her car, Sarah felt both relieved and frightened. Brenda had made a big mistake, but she was still very angry. After Brenda left, Michael Washington arrived with his laptop. "I've completed my analysis of the emails," he announced. "I can prove they were created after the robbery and backdated to frame David." He showed everyone his findings. "See this code here? It shows when the document was actually created, which was 2 days after the robbery." "This is excellent work, Mr. Washington," Thomas Blackwell said, examining the screen. "With this evidence and the jewelry found at Roy's garage, we have a strong case." Olivia Chen arrived next. She had papers in her hand and looked pleased with herself. "I've just come from the courthouse," she told Sarah. "The judge has suspended Brenda's custody rights pending the outcome of the investigation. You'll stay with the Garcia family for now." "So Brenda can't take me?" Sarah asked. "No," Olivia assured her. "You're safe here." Later that afternoon, Sarah was allowed to visit her father at the Millfield County Jail. John Miller drove her there, explaining that things might soon change for the better. "The evidence is mounting in your father's favor," he said. "Tomorrow, we'll have a bail hearing, where I'll ask the judge to release your dad while we prepare for trial." When Sarah saw her father, she ran into his arms. He looked happier and more hopeful than she had seen him in months. "Dad!" "They found Grandma's watch with the picture inside." "I know, Sarah Bear." David hugged her tightly. "John has been keeping me updated. You've been so brave." They sat together at the small table in the visiting room. For the first time, Brenda wasn't there watching them. "When will you come home?" Sarah asked. "We're hoping very soon," David said. "There's a bail hearing tomorrow, and with the new evidence, there's a good chance I'll be released." "But John says we still have to go to trial," Sarah said, her face falling. "Yes," David nodded. "Brenda will probably claim she knew nothing about the robbery, that Roy acted alone." But that's not true. She was there, talking to the robbers. I saw her." "And your testimony will be very important," David said gently. "But we need more evidence connecting Brenda directly to the planning of the robbery." Sarah thought hard, trying to remember every detail of that night. Suddenly, her eyes widened. "Dad!" "I just remembered something important. That night, I saw Brenda hand something to one of the masked men. It looked like a small piece of paper." "A piece of paper?" David leaned forward, interested. "Like instructions or a list?" "Maybe," Sarah said. She took it from her pocket and gave it to him. Then he nodded and put it in his jacket. John Miller, who had been sitting nearby, quickly wrote this down. "This could be important, Sarah. It shows Brenda wasn't just present during the robbery, but actively participating." As their visiting time ended, David hugged Sarah again. "I'm so proud of you, Sarah Bear. You never gave up, even when no one believed you." "I knew you were innocent, Dad," Sarah said. "I just needed to make the grown-ups see it too." Back at the Garcia home, Sarah helped set the table for dinner while the adults discussed the bail hearing scheduled for the next day. "It will be at the Springfield County Courthouse at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning," John Miller explained. "This is our first real opportunity to present the new evidence in court." "Will I need to testify?" Sarah asked nervously. "Not at the bail hearing," John assured her, "but you might need to at the trial." After dinner, while Sarah was getting ready for bed, Detective Martinez called with important news. "We've found something in Roy Peterson's phone records," she told John Miller excitedly. There were dozens of calls to a burner phone number, the same number Sarah photographed from Brenda's messages. "That's the final link!" John exclaimed. "This proves Brenda and Roy were in regular contact, planning the robbery together." When John shared this news with Sarah, she smiled with relief. "So everyone will know I was telling the truth all along?" "Yes," John nodded. "Thanks to your bravery and determination, the truth is finally coming out." As Sarah climbed into bed that night, she felt both nervous and excited about the bail hearing tomorrow. With all the new evidence, her father might finally come home. But Brenda was still out there, and Sarah knew she wouldn't give up easily. Sarah barely slept that night. She kept thinking about the bail hearing and what it would mean if her father could come home. The sun was just rising when Mrs. Garcia knocked gently on her door. "Time to get ready, Sarah," she called. "Today's the big day." Sarah put on her nicest blue dress and carefully braided her hair the way her father had taught her. She tucked Detective Brown into her backpack. She needed him for courage today. When they arrived at the Springfield County Courthouse, Sarah was surprised to see so many people. The parking lot was full, and people stood in small groups near the entrance. "Who are all these people?" Sarah asked John Miller, who was waiting for them at the courthouse steps. "Many of them are your father's students and colleagues from the high school," John explained. "They've come to show support." Inside, the courtroom was packed. Sarah sat in the front row with Olivia Chen and the Garcias. On the other side of the room, Sarah spotted Brenda wearing a black dress and pretending to look sad. The bailiff called out, "All rise for Judge William Henderson." Everyone stood as the judge, an older man with white hair and glasses, entered the courtroom. "Be seated," he said. "This is a bail hearing in the case of State versus Thompson." The prosecutor, a woman in a dark suit, spoke first. "Your Honor, while new evidence has come to light, the state still believes David Thompson was involved in planning the robbery. We suggest that Roy Peterson may have acted without Mrs. Thompson's knowledge, and Mr. Thompson is still the primary suspect." Judge Henderson nodded. "Mr. Miller, you may present your case for bail." John Miller stood. "Your Honor, we have compelling evidence that not only proves my client's innocence, but also implicates others in framing him." For the next 30 minutes, John presented all the new evidence. The jewelry found in Roy's garage, including the watch with the family photo, the bank records showing Roy's suspicious deposits, and the digital evidence proving the emails were fabricated. Furthermore, John continued, Detective Lisa Martinez has discovered phone records showing regular contact between Roy Peterson and a burner phone that belonged to Brenda Thompson. Detective Martinez took the stand and explained how the phone number from Sarah's photos matched the number in Roy's records. These calls occurred before, during, and after the robbery, Martinez testified. This suggests coordination and planning between these two individuals. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Sarah watched the judge's face carefully. He looked troubled by what he was hearing. "Your Honor," John Miller said, "given this new evidence, we ask that David Thompson be released on bail pending trial. He has strong ties to the community, is not a flight risk, and the evidence now suggests he was framed." The judge removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "I must say, this case has taken a surprising turn. The evidence presented raises serious questions about the original charges." He turned to the prosecutor. "Does the state have any response?" The prosecutor looked uncomfortable. "We maintain that Mr. Thompson should remain in custody until all evidence is fully assessed." Judge Henderson shook his head. "Based on the new evidence presented, I find the circumstances have changed significantly. Bail is granted in the amount of $25,000. Sarah jumped up from her seat. "Does that mean my dad can come home?" Olivia gently pulled her back down. "Yes, once the bail is paid. But we need to be patient." The judge continued, "Mr. Thompson will be released today pending trial. He is to remain within the county and check in weekly with the court." He struck his gavel on the desk. "This hearing is adjourned." The courtroom erupted with cheers and clapping. Teachers and students from David's school hugged each other. Sarah was so happy she started crying. "When will I see my dad?" she asked John. "Very soon," he promised. "The bail paperwork will take a few hours, but he should be released this afternoon." Sarah noticed that in all the commotion, Brenda had slipped out of the courtroom. No one seemed to know where she had gone. 3 hours later, Sarah stood outside the Millfield County Jail with the Garcias, the Washingtons, and John Miller. When the doors opened and David Thompson walked out, Sarah ran to him. "Dad!" she cried, throwing herself into his arms. David knelt down and hugged Sarah tightly. He was still thin, but his eyes were bright with happiness. "Sarah Bear," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You did it. You saved me." Many people had gathered to welcome David. His students had made a banner that said, "Welcome back Mr. Thompson," in big letters. Several teachers from the high school were there too, including the principal. "We never believed you were guilty, David," the principal said, shaking his hand. After thanking everyone, David turned to the Garcias. "Thank you for taking care of my daughter. I can never repay you for your kindness." "It was our pleasure," Mrs. Garcia said warmly. "Sarah is a remarkable girl." "Where will you stay?" Michael Washington asked. "Your house is still technically half owned by Brenda," David finished with a sigh. "John has advised me not to go back there." "You'll both stay with us until we figure things out," Mr. Garcia insisted. "We have plenty of room." Back at the Garcia home, everyone gathered in the living room. Detective Martinez arrived with news. "We've issued an arrest warrant for Brenda Thompson," she announced. "But she seems to have disappeared. Her car was found abandoned at the Springfield bus station." "She ran away?" Sarah asked. Martinez nodded. "It appears so. We're tracking all buses and trains that left today." David pulled Sarah close. "She can't hurt us anymore, Sarah Bear. The truth is coming out now." That evening, while David was talking with the adults in the kitchen, Sarah's iPad made a notification sound. She had a new message from an unknown number. "No one will believe a little girl. Stop now or your dad won't be safe even if he's free." Sarah's hands shook as she showed the message to her father and Detective Martinez. "It's her," Sarah whispered. "It's Brenda." Detective Martinez took the iPad. "This helps us, Sarah. We can trace where this message came from." "She's still trying to scare you," David said, putting his arm around Sarah, "but we won't let her succeed." The next day, Detective Martinez returned with more news. We found more evidence at Roy Peterson's house and he's now facing serious jail time." "What about Brenda?" David asked. "Still missing," Martinez admitted, "but we've frozen her bank accounts and alerted Border Patrol. She won't get far." Later that afternoon, John Miller called with unexpected news. Roy Peterson wanted to make a deal. "He's offering to testify against Brenda in exchange for a reduced sentence," John explained over the phone. "He's willing to admit to everything. How Brenda planned the robbery, how they planted the fake evidence on your computer, all of it." "That's great news," David said, looking at Sarah with a smile. The night before the trial was set to begin, Sarah helped Mrs. Garcia prepare dinner while David made phone calls in the living room. The news had spread throughout Millfield about Sarah's role in exposing the truth, and reporters had been calling the house asking for interviews. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" Mrs. Garcia asked as they set the table. "A little," Sarah admitted. "I have to talk in front of everyone." "Just tell the truth exactly as you remember it," Mrs. Garcia advised. "That's all anyone can ask of you." The next morning, the Springfield County Courthouse was even more crowded than during the bail hearing. News vans parked outside and reporters with microphones stood on the courthouse steps. Inside, Sarah sat with her father, John Miller, and Thomas Blackwell, who was now prosecuting the case against Brenda and Roy instead of against David. "The courtroom layout will be the same as the bail hearing," John explained to Sarah, "but this time you'll be sitting in that chair next to the judge when it's your turn to testify." "Will Brenda be there?" Sarah asked nervously. "We don't think so," David reassured her. "She hasn't been found yet." When Judge Henderson entered, everyone stood. He announced the start of the trial, and Thomas Blackwell gave the opening statement. "Your Honor, this case is about a complex conspiracy to frame an innocent man," Blackwell began. "The evidence will show that Brenda Thompson and Roy Peterson staged a robbery, stole family heirlooms and cash, and then carefully planted false evidence to make it appear that David Thompson was responsible." After the defense attorney for Roy Peterson gave a brief statement, Blackwell called his first witness. The state calls Sarah Thompson. Sarah's heart pounded as she walked to the witness stand. She clutched Detective Brown under her arm for courage. After she promised to tell the truth, Blackwell asked her to describe what she saw the night of the robbery. Sarah took a deep breath and began, "I woke up because I heard noises downstairs. I went to the top of the stairs and saw 3 men in black masks in our living room. They were taking things from our safe." "And where was your stepmother, Brenda Thompson, during this time?" Blackwell asked. "She was standing near them," Sarah said clearly. "She wasn't tied up or scared. She was talking to them, telling them to hurry up." As Sarah continued her testimony, a commotion erupted at the back of the courtroom. Security guards were struggling with someone trying to enter. The person wore a blonde wig, sunglasses, and a scarf, but Sarah immediately recognized her. It was Brenda, in disguise. "That's her," Sarah pointed. "That's Brenda." The courtroom erupted in chaos as guards handcuffed Brenda and removed her wig and sunglasses. Judge Henderson struck his gavel repeatedly. "Order! Order in the court!" he demanded. As Brenda was led away, she locked eyes with Sarah. Her face was full of hatred, but Sarah didn't look away. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of Brenda anymore. Judge Henderson called a brief recess to restore order. In the hallway, David hugged Sarah tightly. "You did great," he whispered. "And now Brenda can't run away anymore." "She can't hurt us now, right?" Sarah asked. "No," David promised. "She can't hurt us anymore." The truth is finally being heard. After the recess, everyone returned to the courtroom. Brenda was now sitting at the defendant's table in handcuffs, with 2 officers standing behind her. She wore a prison jumpsuit instead of her disguise. Judge Henderson looked at Sarah. "Miss Thompson, are you ready to continue your testimony?" Sarah nodded, still clutching Detective Brown. "Yes, Your Honor." "Please return to the witness stand," the judge instructed. As Sarah walked back to the witness stand, she felt everyone watching her. The courtroom was completely silent. She sat down and looked at her father, who gave her an encouraging smile. Thomas Blackwell continued his questions. "Sarah, can you tell us more about what you saw the night of the robbery?" Sarah sat up straight. "I saw Brenda give something to one of the men in masks. It looked like a small piece of paper. Then I saw them taking jewelry and money from the safe. Did Brenda appear to be afraid of these men?" "No," Sarah said confidently. "She was telling them to hurry up. She wasn't tied up like she told the police." Roy Peterson's defense attorney then tried to confuse Sarah during cross-examination. "Isn't it possible you were dreaming?" he suggested. "Or maybe you were confused about what you saw in the dark." Sarah shook her head. "No, I know what I saw. My stepmother was standing with the robbers, not tied up like she told the police." When Sarah finished her testimony, she returned to sit beside her father. David squeezed her hand. "You did perfectly," he whispered. Next, Roy Peterson took the stand. He looked nervous as he was sworn in. His orange jumpsuit hung loosely on his thin frame, and he avoided looking at Brenda. "Mr. Peterson," Thomas Blackwell began, "you've agreed to testify as part of a plea agreement, is that correct?" "Yes," Roy answered, his voice rough. "Please tell the court about your involvement in the robbery at the Thompson home." Roy cleared his throat. "Brenda came to me about 2 months before the robbery. She said she was getting divorced and wanted to keep the inheritance money from her husband's parents. She asked if I knew people who could help stage a robbery." "And did you help her plan this robbery?" "Yes," Roy admitted. "I found 2 guys to help us. Brenda gave us the house layout, the safe combination, and told us when her husband would be out of the house." "What about the evidence against David Thompson? The emails linking him to criminals?" Roy shifted uncomfortably. "That was Brenda's idea. She used his computer when he wasn't home and created fake emails. She backdated them to make it look like he planned everything." "And the money and jewelry that was stolen, what happened to those items?" "I kept them at my place," Roy said. "We were waiting for things to calm down before selling the jewelry. The plan was to split everything 50-50 once David was convicted." Brenda's attorney tried to suggest that Roy was lying to get a lighter sentence, but Roy's testimony remained consistent. Next, Michael Washington took the stand to explain the technical evidence. "I analyzed the emails supposedly sent by David Thompson," Michael explained, showing images on a large screen. "The metadata, the hidden information in these files, shows they were actually created after the robbery, not before, as the prosecution originally claimed." Michael used simple terms to explain how the emails had been backdated to frame David. The jury members nodded with understanding. "So these emails could not have been sent by Mr. Thompson before the robbery?" Thomas Blackwell asked. "No," Michael said firmly. "They were created afterward and designed to look like they were sent earlier." The prosecutor then presented the antique watch recovered from Roy's garage. "Your Honor, this watch belonging to David Thompson's mother contains a hidden compartment," Blackwell explained, carefully opening the back of the watch. He held up a small, faded photograph for the jury to see. Inside is a family photo showing David, his mother, and Sarah as a baby, exactly as Mr. Thompson described. Sarah smiled at the sight of the photograph. She had almost forgotten what her grandmother looked like. Detective Martinez was the final witness. She explained how her investigation had been misled by the fabricated evidence. At first, the evidence against David Thompson seemed solid, she admitted. But as we dug deeper, inconsistencies emerged. Sarah's testimony made me question our initial conclusions, and when we found the jewelry in Roy Peterson's possession, it became clear we had been looking at the wrong suspect. Throughout the testimony, David sat tall beside Sarah. Occasionally their eyes met, and he would smile at her with pride. After all the witnesses had testified, the lawyers gave their closing arguments. Thomas Blackwell stood before the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case began as the prosecution of David Thompson. But thanks to the courage and persistence of an 8-year-old girl, we discovered the truth. Brenda Thompson and Roy Peterson conspired to steal valuable items and frame an innocent man. The evidence is clear and convincing. The jury left to deliberate. Everyone told Sarah and David it might take hours or even days, but the jury returned after only 2 hours. "That's a good sign," John Miller whispered to David. "Quick deliberations usually favor the truth when the evidence is this clear." The jury foreman, a tall woman with gray hair, stood to deliver the verdict. On the charge of theft against Brenda Thompson, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of conspiracy, we find the defendant guilty. Sarah held her breath as similar guilty verdicts were announced for Roy Peterson. Then the foreman continued, "We also recommend that all charges against David Thompson be dismissed immediately, as the evidence clearly shows he was framed." The judge nodded in agreement. "David Thompson is hereby fully exonerated of all charges. The court apologizes for the miscarriage of justice in this case." As Brenda and Roy were led away in handcuffs, Brenda turned to glare at Sarah with cold hatred. But Sarah didn't look away. She had told the truth, and now everyone knew it. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded the Thompson family. "Sarah, how does it feel to have solved this case?" one reporter asked, holding a microphone toward her. Sarah hugged Detective Brown close. "I just told what I saw. I knew my dad was innocent." "Weren't you scared to stand up against adults who tried to silence you?" another reporter asked. "Yes," Sarah admitted honestly. "I was really scared. But the truth matters more than being scared." That evening, David and Sarah joined the Washingtons and the Garcias for a celebration dinner at a local pizza restaurant. The table was filled with laughter and happy conversation as everyone enjoyed the first truly relaxed meal they'd had in months. "I propose a toast," Michael Washington said, raising his glass of soda. "To Sarah Thompson, the bravest truth-teller in Millfield." Everyone clinked their glasses together as Sarah blushed. Later, as David tucked Sarah into bed in the Garcia's guest room, he sat on the edge of her bed. "Sarah Bear," he said softly, "I am so proud of you. Not many adults would have had your courage." "I was just trying to help you, Dad," Sarah said, pulling the covers up. "You did more than help me," David said. "You showed everyone that the truth matters, even when it's hard to tell. You never gave up, even when grown-ups didn't believe you." "What happens now?" Sarah asked, yawning. "Tomorrow we'll start looking for a place to live," David explained. "Most of the money from Grandma and Grandpa's inheritance has been recovered, so we'll be okay." "Will we go back to our old house?" David shook his head. "No, I think we need a fresh start. Somewhere new that doesn't have bad memories." "As long as we're together, I don't care where we live," Sarah said sleepily. "Together is exactly what we'll be," David promised, kissing her forehead. "Always." As Sarah drifted off to sleep, she felt safe for the first time in months. Detective Brown lay beside her pillow, his job as a detective finally complete. The mystery was solved. The truth was told and justice had been served. The story of the little girl who exposed a complex conspiracy had spread throughout Millfield and beyond. Sarah didn't know it yet, but her courage had inspired many others to speak up when they saw wrong things happening. For Sarah, the most important thing was that her father was free and the nightmare was over. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they rebuilt their lives, but they would face them together. 3 months after the trial, Sarah stood in the doorway of their new apartment, watching her father hang a family photo on the freshly painted wall. It was a sunny Saturday morning in April, and light streamed through the windows of their second-floor apartment on Elm Street. "Do you think it's straight?" David asked, stepping back to examine the picture. "A little more to the left," Sarah suggested. The photo showed Sarah, David, and the Washingtons at the park last weekend. It wasn't their old house on Maple Street, but this new 2-bedroom apartment felt safe and peaceful. "Perfect," Sarah said when the picture was straight. "I like having new happy pictures." David smiled. "Me too, Sarah Bear." Their new home was smaller than their old house, but Sarah liked it better. Her bedroom was painted light blue, her favorite color, and she had a window seat where she could read books with Detective Brown. Most importantly, there were no bad memories here. "Ready for breakfast?" David asked. "I'm making pancakes." In the kitchen, Sarah set the table while David mixed pancake batter. This had become their Saturday morning routine. Pancakes, then a walk in the park, followed by board games or movies. Simple things that felt precious after all they'd been through. "Dad?" Sarah asked as they ate. "Are you happy to be teaching again?" David had returned to Millfield High School 6 weeks ago. The school board had given him back his position with an official apology. "Very happy," David nodded. "The students have been wonderful. They made a big, 'Welcome back, Mr. Thompson' banner my first day. Like the one they made when you got out of jail," Sarah remembered. "Exactly. And they ask about you all the time. They call you Detective Sarah now." Sarah grinned at that. She had returned to Lincoln Elementary, her original school, where her old friends had welcomed her back like a hero. At first, the other kids had asked endless questions about the trial, but now things were mostly back to normal. "Ms. Wilson wants me to talk to the class about the justice system next week," Sarah said. "She says my experience could help other kids understand how courts work." "That's a great idea," David said proudly. "You know more about it than most adults now." After breakfast, David sorted through mail while Sarah cleaned up the dishes. She was much more helpful around the house now, something that had changed since their ordeal. "Hey, look at this," David said, holding up an official-looking envelope. "The final paperwork from Grandma and Grandpa's estate. Almost all the money has been recovered." The police had found most of the cash in Roy Peterson's house, along with many of the jewelry pieces. Some items had already been sold and couldn't be recovered, but insurance covered most of those losses. "What will you do with the money?" Sarah asked. "Well, first I'm buying a reliable car," David said. "And I've been thinking about creating a small scholarship at the high school. We could name it after Grandma and Grandpa, for students who want to be police officers or lawyers." "Actually, I was thinking for students interested in criminal justice," David explained. "People who want to make the system better and more fair." Later that morning, Sarah got ready for her weekly appointment with Dr. Lisa Bennett, her child psychologist. At first, Sarah had been nervous about therapy, but she quickly grew to like Dr. Bennett with her kind eyes and colorful office full of toys and art supplies. "Do you think Dr. Bennett will say I don't need to come anymore?" Sarah asked as David drove her to the appointment. "Do you feel ready to stop going?" David asked. Sarah thought about it. "I don't have as many nightmares now. But I like talking to her." "Then you can keep going even if she says you don't need to," David assured her. "Talking about feelings is always good, even when things are going well." In Dr. Bennett's waiting room, they saw a familiar face. Detective Lisa Martinez was just leaving another office. "Sarah, Mr. Thompson!" Martinez smiled warmly. "How are you both doing?" "We're doing really well," David said, shaking her hand. "How about you?" "We heard about your promotion." After the Thompson case, Martinez had been promoted to lead detective and had started reviewing other potentially problematic convictions. "It's keeping me busy," Martinez admitted. "Your case changed a lot of things in the department. We've implemented new procedures to prevent false evidence from being accepted so easily." She knelt down to Sarah's level. "And I wanted to tell you personally. The police chief has approved a special award for you at next week's ceremony." "An award?" Sarah's eyes widened. "For me?" "A Citizen Bravery Award," Martinez confirmed, "for your courage in standing up for the truth even when it was difficult." "The ceremony is next Friday at the police department. We'd love for your whole family to attend." After Martinez left, Sarah went into her session with Dr. Bennett feeling excited about the award. "How have you been sleeping this week?" Dr. Bennett asked as they settled into the comfortable chairs in her office. "Better," Sarah said. "I only had one bad dream, and I remembered the calming techniques you taught me." "That's excellent progress," Dr. Bennett smiled. And how do you feel when you think about Brenda now?" Sarah considered this carefully. Brenda and Roy had both been sentenced to 8 years in prison for their crimes. "I still feel a little scared sometimes," Sarah admitted. "But then I remember she can't hurt us anymore." "That's very healthy," Dr. Bennett assured her. "Those feelings may take a long time to completely go away, and that's okay." When Sarah's session ended, she found her dad in the waiting room talking with Olivia Chen, her former child advocate. "Sarah," Olivia smiled, "I was just telling your dad about the new program I've started at the courthouse." After Sarah's case, Olivia had created a program to better train child advocates to listen to children during legal proceedings. "We're teaching advocates to take children's observations seriously," Olivia explained. "Your case showed us that children often see things adults miss." The following Friday, Sarah put on her new blue dress for the award ceremony at the Millfield Police Department. The Washingtons and the Garcias would be meeting them there. "Nervous?" David asked as he adjusted his tie. "A little," Sarah admitted. "What if I trip when I walk up to get the award?" "Then you'll pick yourself up and keep going," David said simply. "Just like you've always done." The ceremony room was filled with police officers in uniform and many familiar faces from their journey. John Miller, Thomas Blackwell, Detective Martinez, and even Judge Henderson had come to see Sarah receive her award. The police chief, a tall woman with short gray hair, called Sarah to the front of the room. "Today we honor a very special citizen of Millfield," she announced. Sarah Thompson reminded us all that truth-telling sometimes requires the most courage of all. Justice depends on brave voices, no matter how small they might seem. As the chief presented Sarah with a framed certificate and a special pin, the room erupted in applause. Sarah caught her father's eye in the crowd. He was wiping away tears, smiling with pride. That evening, the Thompsons hosted a small celebration dinner in their new apartment. The Washingtons and Garcias brought food, and Emma and Sarah disappeared into Sarah's room to play while the adults talked. "The girls have become inseparable," Tanya Washington said, watching the children. "We're grateful for that," David said. "Your family has been such a blessing to us." As the evening ended and their guests departed, David and Sarah stepped out onto their small balcony to watch the sunset. The spring air was cool but pleasant. "Dad?" Sarah asked as they looked at the orange and pink sky. "Do you think we'll ever feel completely normal again?" "I'm not sure we need to feel exactly like we did before," David said thoughtfully. "We've both changed. But I think we'll keep feeling better every day." Sarah nodded. "I was really scared during all of it, Dad." "That's what makes you brave, Sarah Bear," David said, putting his arm around her shoulders. "Being afraid but doing the right thing anyway." They watched the sun sink lower behind the trees. In Sarah's room, on her bookshelf, sat a real detective notebook, a gift from her father on the 1-year anniversary of the robbery. Inside, David had written, "For Sarah, who taught me that justice comes from courage, not just from courts." Tomorrow, they would continue building their new life together. David had started dating again, meeting a kind librarian named Jennifer for coffee twice now. Sarah was excelling in school and had joined a junior debate club. The painful past was gradually being replaced by a hopeful future. As the last rays of sunlight faded, Sarah leaned against her father's side, feeling safe and loved. The journey had been difficult and frightening, but they had survived it together. And in the process, Sarah had discovered something important. Even children can change the world when they stand firm in what they know to be true. "Time for bed, Detective," David said softly as darkness fell. "Tomorrow's a new day." Sarah smiled. Tomorrow was indeed a new day, one they would face together, stronger than before. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.